Imagine this, the wedding hall is filled with murmurs, chandeliers glowing like stars above. The groom, a young and powerful CEO, sits stiffly at the altar. His jaw is clenched, his eyes dart between the guests, his heart burning with resentment. Because he is convinced that he has been tricked into marrying a woman he believes is ugly, someone who could never match the image he had dreamed of for his bride. He feels betrayed, humiliated, almost angry enough to walk away. And yet, when the moment comes, when his hand reaches out, trembling, to lift the veil, the world around him collapses in silence. What he sees beneath changes everything he thought he knew about beauty, love, and himself. Before we continue, if you love emotional stories that touch the heart and inspire you to see life differently, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. Because today's story will leave you speechless, and it just might stay in your heart forever. The CEO's name was Adrian Knight, a man who had conquered boardrooms, companies, and people's admiration. Yet when it came to love, he had been stubborn. Adrian always said he would never settle for less than perfection. He wanted a bride who would turn heads, someone so striking that her presence alone would enhance his own power and reputation. His mother, however, worried for him. She wanted him to marry for more than beauty, for more than image. And when she arranged this marriage with a girl from a humble family, Adrian felt betrayed. He only agreed because of business pressure and his mother's health. He couldn't bring himself to defy her completely. So here he was, in a hall filled with hundreds of eyes, his mind screaming that he was walking into a trap. Rumors had already reached him. People whispered the bride was plain, maybe even unattractive, nothing like the glamorous women he was used to. His pride stung. He felt like a victim. He sat there, waiting for the ceremony to end, thinking of excuses to distance himself from her once everything was signed. And then came that moment. The priest spoke the words, and Adrian's fingers touched the veil. He pulled it back with cold indifference, yet what his eyes met left him frozen. She wasn't ugly. She wasn't plain. She was breathtaking. But not in the shallow, glittering way he had always measured beauty. Her eyes held pain, strength, and kindness all at once. Her face, framed by the veil, was delicate but filled with something deeper than beauty, it was dignity. And in that instant, Adrian's arrogance cracked. The bride, Evelyn, looked at him with steady eyes, even though she had heard the whispers, even though she had felt his coldness during the engagement. She knew he hadn't wanted her. She had expected rejection. But she stood tall, refusing to let shame define her. Her strength pierced him more than her beauty ever could. For the first time, Adrian realized he had misjudged everything. But the story didn't end at the altar. Married life for them was complicated. Adrian, despite being shaken, still struggled with his pride. He avoided her, buried himself in work, and tried to convince himself that emotions didn't matter. Evelyn, on the other hand, carried her own wounds. She had married a man who hadn't chosen her, and that pain sat heavy in her chest. She devoted herself to kindness, caring for his ailing mother, showing respect to everyone in his household, never once complaining about the coldness she received. Slowly, quietly, she began to touch the lives around her. It was Adrian's mother who saw it first. Evelyn wasn't just a beautiful girl, she was a rare soul. She stayed by the old woman's side through every sleepless night, never seeking recognition. She handled gossip from relatives with grace, never retaliating. And most of all, she never asked Adrian for anything, not his money, not his affection, not even his attention. This began to eat at him. Because while the world outside saw him as powerful, inside his own home he was the one who felt small. One night, Adrian came home late, exhausted and furious from a failed deal. He expected silence. Instead, he heard laughter, the soft, genuine kind. He peeked inside his mother's room and saw Evelyn reading to her, her face glowing with compassion. For the first time, he didn't see her as the bride forced upon him. He saw her as someone extraordinary. His heart twisted. But pride dies hard. He didn't know how to apologize, how to undo the damage of his coldness. Instead, he began watching her from afar, noticing small things, how she spoke gently to the staff, how she never raised her voice, how she carried sorrow in her eyes but never let it make her bitter. Slowly, Adrian began to change. When Evelyn faced cruelty from outsiders, jealous women mocking her background, business partners questioning her worth, Adrian finally stepped forward. He defended her publicly, his words sharp and firm, declaring her as his wife with pride. Evelyn was stunned, but for the first time, she saw a different man in him, not the arrogant CEO, but someone capable of love. Their journey wasn't perfect. They argued, they stumbled, they had moments of distance. But with every trial, Adrian learned humility, and Evelyn learned to trust. Over time, what had started as a forced union turned into something real. He fell in love with her, not just for her beauty, but for her soul. And she, after much hesitation, let herself love him back. By the end, Adrian would often look back at that moment at the altar, the moment when he lifted the veil and thought his world was crumbling. In truth, it was the moment his real life began.